Welcome back to CF Tesla, and today is another install day. I don't know if you're like me, but when I look at these new Model 3 and Ys and see that nice LED lighting on the dash and on the doors, I get kind of jealous that my older Tesla doesn't have that. So today I'm setting out to see if this product sent to me by this company, Tyler, can actually solve that for me. But I have some questions about it. First of all, after this is installed, is it really gonna look OEM or is it gonna look kind of cheap? The last thing you want is people to get in your car and think, wow, this is kind of corny. So let's go over this product, I'll tell you all about it, and then we'll go install it. And then after you tell me if you think it's worth it. Okay, so here's what it is. There are 3 parts to the kit that I was sent. You have this very long piece that's going to go into the dash. It's gonna kind of tuck under the dash. Then you have this smaller piece that's gonna tuck on the center console, kind of right above where the wireless charging pad is. That'll give some good ambience up above as well as down below. Now, this is one kit you can get all on its own. This is $75.99, and of course that's before shipping and also before my discount, which I'll put that all down below in the description. Now, for another $20, you can also buy the Ambient kit for the footwell. You get 2 different lights you can put down there however you want. There's just 3M tape on the back to stick it wherever you need, which if you've ever used 3M tape, you can remove it if you ever don't like it, just heat it up a little bit and pull it out. And on the wiring harness, there's just a little connector here. You can put them together if you decide to order that as well. Now, how this installs is with a basic USB-A. So there's no invasive install here. Easy in, easy out. And the rest of these wires tuck into the side panel, which I'll show you how to install later. So as far as does this void any kind of a warranty? No, because it's plug and play. And if you were ever gonna take this to a service station, all you'd have to do is simply unplug the USB and it would not be connected in any way to the car. So no warranty issues there. But there's a lot of wire involved with the footwell lights, so we may have to get a little creative on how to hide those. Oh, and I should mention that they also give you this other USB female end. So even though you're taking up one in your glove box, you do have another one here, so you're not actually losing a USB port. So before we get out to the car, here's some information you need to know. It's made for the 2021 through 2023 Model 3 and Y. What does it do? It creates ambient lighting inside of your Tesla. Now, my 2019 has ambient lighting in them, but in future years, most cars don't have it. And you can't change the color around or make it change to the music or to your voice or whatever this thing can do. It does have an app that came with it as well, and it connected very, very quickly to it, so you can go and do things like change the color around again, and I'll show you all that in a minute. Let's talk about the battery and how it affects the battery. Now, they say that what it's supposed to do is use a human sensor. When you leave your car, when the last passenger gets out of the car, the sensor built into this should know, and within 60 seconds, it should turn off, and then when you get into your car, it should automatically turn back on again. So real quickly, because I don't know how the lighting is gonna be in my garage, it's a crazy freezing windstorm outside, so we're gonna be doing this in my garage. Let me demo it for you here on my desk. All right, so first I'm gonna take it and plug in the USB. And now as you can see, the LEDs are lit up. So I open up the app and it says connection successful, and now I have control over it. So I can either take this and run my finger around on this wheel to get it exactly as I want, or there's some presets down here and you can even say some favorites to it. And you can even do things like go into mic. And now as I talk, it's going to flash the way I want it, which, I mean, could be kind of fun. You also have some different modes you can turn on where it'll cycle between different colors. And you can control the brightness and how fast it flashes and goes between all the different cycles. But maybe if you just want some nice white ambient light or maybe some red, you can easily adjust it right here on the app. And that's all there is to it with the app. Very simple, right to the point. And when we connect these footwell ambient lights, they're gonna do the same thing as everything else does. When you control it on the app, it changes them everywhere. Now, my first impressions before I install it is I like how simple it is, I like how clean it looks, and I like how fast the app connects, and the controls that you get are plenty. So next up, the install. The first step was to prepare my car for the install, which for me meant removing my LED wireless charging light deal, as well as my steering wheel display. Luckily, the LED was only powered by the wireless charger, so that was just a matter of snapping it off and then detaching the footwell lights. But the steering wheel screen was a few more steps. I first had to take off the side panels, take off the dash itself, remove the wiring harness, detach the relay, and then put it all back together. Now, I may have been able to put the dash back in there after I finished installing the light, but that would have been a real hassle, and you'll see why later. So now that all the stuff was out, I was ready to start the install. The first step was to clear out the glove box, including taking out the USB splitter and the flash drive. I actually ended up still using this in the end, but for now I just removed it. Next, I removed the side panel on the passenger side only. With the glove box open, all you have to do is grab it by the side and pull it, and all 3 clips will let go. From there, I started laying down the wiring harness inside of the glove box. You basically just shove it all in there to get started, and then pull out enough to get your light where you want it in the right position, and then go back in and organize it all later. Now, I didn't really know the right place to start with all this, so I decided to start with the center console light first. I will mention though, in case you're following me along doing this install, that I ended up pulling this back out and putting in the wires connecting the footwell lights first, and then tucking them in behind this light, and then putting the light back in at the end. So if you are purchasing this with the wheel well lights, don't do this step until the end. Then next was the long dash light. I actually thought this was pretty creative how they designed this part. There's no sticky tape or anything you have to peel off and get it stuck in the right spot. You're not gonna have any residue on your dash anywhere. If you look inside the air vent, there's actually this really small gap running the entire length of the dash. It's just sort of a part of the dash itself. And this light just tucks right in there. Because this light is not the full length of the dash, just start about 4 or 5 inches in. I just kind of eyeballed it. And then you just tuck the light inside that slot using your finger and the supplied plastic tool. It just barely fits, but it goes in okay and was actually pretty easy. I think the real question is if it's ever gonna fall back out again, because in some parts of it, it was actually kind of loose, but it's really easy to fix. You just stick your finger up there and kind of poke it back into the slot. After that's done, you can put the side panel back on and you're done with that portion of it. Now back inside of the glove box, you have to kind of mess with the wires a bit to get them to all fit so they're not being pinched anywhere. And if all you're doing is the center console and the dash light, this part is really easy. The wires are really small and it's just not a problem. You can kind of mess with them to figure out the best spot to put them where they're not going to be pinched. But now let's talk about these footwell lights because they have a lot of wire. And one thing that's pretty obvious is that these are not specifically designed for a Tesla. In fact, they give you enough wire to fit inside of the biggest semi on the planet. You easily have an additional 2 or 3 feet to each one of these wires that you don't need, which can be a bit of a problem when you're trying to hide the wires and get them out of the way. Now each side has 2 lights, right? So on the passenger side, I put both lights up first using the 3M tape, and then I just simply tucked all the wires underneath the floor mat. That was pretty simple. But on the driver's side, I had to get a little bit more creative as I mentioned earlier. I was able to tuck both of the wires to the driver's side lights up above the wireless charger, and then I was also able to tuck the light back in for the center console. So that hid that pretty nicely. Then once I had the lights stuck up where I wanted them, I just bundled up all the wire, taped it up really tight, and then I zip tied it to the very top of the brake pedal shaft. It is well out of the way, and when you're driving you can't see any of it, and there's no risk of my foot catching on anything. I will probably go back with some black electric tape and tape up all the wires just so there's no chance if it moves at all of me grabbing it with my foot or anybody seeing it. Once that was done, I went back to the glove box and cleaned that up the best that I could, and to my amazement, all the junk and the adapter that was previously in there went right back in and it was able to close. So the install took me, including moving around cameras and lighting, about 15 minutes total. So now that it's fully installed, let's take a look and see how it all worked. First, I tested the auto shut off. After 60 seconds, it turned right off like it was supposed to. Then I started walking towards the car and was only at the rear passenger door, and I saw it turn back on again. And it makes this really cool animation, which I thought was a neat touch. Here's another angle of it shutting off as well as it turning back on again. The sensor is actually pretty sensitive and it worked every single time. Next, I got out the app and tried a few of the modes, such as the voice mode. So here's the sound one. You can see that as I'm holding it here, it is basically changing to my voice and kind of crazy, like a strobe light in here. We can massively reduce the sensitivity. That makes it, I guess, a little bit better, but I think this is something you could do, like if you were to turn on music in the car, you can kind of play to the music if that's your thing. So for now, then we'll put it on one of these settings, one of these preset modes. And so now as we're riding, it's going to continually just change between these different colors. So it adds a little bit of variety in there. And on the app here, we can change how quickly we want it to change. So now this is going to be a lot slower between different colors. And then of course we can change it to be a lot faster as well, changing colors, which is going to kill you, drive you nuts. I kind of like it on the slowest setting. And then of course you can also change the brightness level as well. You can really dim it way down so you can see it just barely in there, all the way to its brightest setting. And maybe we'll put it on a single color here to show you the difference. So that's all the way bright and that's all the way dim. So you can really make it very ambient. To be honest, there's a lot of customization you can do, and until I drive it at night, I don't know if I'll keep it at its bright setting or if I'll put it more dim, but I think we'll probably keep it on a consistent light rather than having it switch, because I think that can be kind of distracting. So here are some shots of it fully installed. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. And while we're looking at this, to answer my question from the beginning, I do not think this looks cheap. The lighting itself is consistent throughout the light string. The lights are hidden so you only see the glow, and the app works really well, giving you lots of customization. But to be fair, it's not all good. At night, you really won't notice this, but in the daylight, you are gonna see some of the wires, especially where the one wire turns into 4 running to all 4 of the footwell lights. That cannot go inside of the glove box because those 4 thick wires just will not allow it to shut. And if you forced it, well, you don't wanna do that. So it has to be outside of the glove box. I did tuck it in kind of on the side there so the driver doesn't see it, but in the daylight, the passenger is definitely gonna see that. Again, maybe some of you know a better place where you can take those wires and keep them all hid. You could probably pull off panels and do this all properly if you really wanted to make it permanent. And I might go back and do that and explore it some other time to see if there is a better way to do that. But this is only a potential issue if you did buy the footwell lights. If you're only buying the dash cam and the center console light, those wires are pretty much completely invisible and they're tiny. That's simple. Only the footwell are going to be a bit of a challenge to get all those hidden because, again, they're not custom made for the Tesla. So I personally think this is a really cool upgrade to your car. For those of us with older models that do not have this built in, I think it adds a really cool touch to the car. And at 75 bucks before my discount, I think it's actually a pretty good install to bring some character to your car. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And of course, all the information for this, including my discount, will be down below in the description. Let me know if you pick one of these up, and I'll see you guys on the next video.